بعد. So today, inshallah, we'll move on to the types of Hajj. So these are the Anwa'ul Ansak, Anwa'ul Ansak Thalatha. He mentions that the rites of Hajj are 3 in number, or the types of Hajj are 3 in number. The first of them is Al-Hajj Tamattu' bil-Umrati ila al-Hajj. And that is the Hajj which begins with an Umrah and then it is followed by a Hajj. And it is known as Hajj Tamattu'. So it begins with the Umrah and then it follows, after it follows the Hajj. And that is when the Ihram, that a person takes on the Ihram in the well-known months of Hajj for Umrah on its own. So he enters into the state of Ihram in the months of Hajj to perform Umrah on its own. Then, after performing the Umrah, he exits. Na'am. Then he exits from the Umrah rather. So he performs the Umrah and he exits the Umrah by performing the Tawaf, the Sa'i and cutting the hair. So then he comes out of his Ihram. So what has he done? In the well-known months of Hajj, which are what? We mentioned the 3 well-known months of Hajj. Shawwal, Dhul Qa'dah and Dhul Hijjah. So he enters into Ihram in one of the 3 well-known months of Hajj. Then he exits from the Umrah by performing the Tawaf and the Sa'i and cutting his hair, or her hair for that matter. And he or she comes out of the Ihram. Then he enters back into Ihram at its time in the same year, which is of course on the day of the day of 8th of Dhul Hijjah, Yawm Tarwiyah. So that's fairly straightforward. And that, by the way, is the Hajj that all of us generally do in our times. This is the Hajj that we do. The Hajj Tamattu'. The Hajj Tamattu'. The second type of Hajj is called Al-Qiran. And that is when a person, Shaykh Ibn Uthaymeen mentions, and that is when a person enters Ihram for both Umrah and Hajj. He enters into Ihram for both Umrah and Hajj, jami'an, together. Or he enters into Ihram for Umrah to begin with. Then he enters into Hajj, who enters Hajj into his Umrah before commencing the Tawaf of Umrah. So, for example, he reaches Mecca. And then he makes the Tawaf al-Qudum, which is the first Tawaf that he makes for his Umrah. Then he makes Sa'i between Safa and Marwa, between Safa wal Marwa, for the Umrah. And that Sa'i also counts for his Hajj. So he makes only one Sa'i. Then he stays in a state of Ihram up until he leaves it on the day of Eid, which is, of course, the 10th of Dhul Hijjah. So you can see straight away the difference between the Hajj Tamattu' and the Hajj Qiran. Hajj Tamattu' is what? That a person, that he enters into Ihram in the months of Hajj. He performs the Umrah, then he comes out of Ihram. Then he enters into Ihram again on the 8th of Dhul Hijjah, and then he performs the Hajj. Right, so that's Hajj Tamattu'. As for Hajj Qiran, then he enters into Ihram for Umrah and Hajj. And then he goes and performs his Umrah, which is Tawaf and Sa'i, but he does not come out of Ihram. He does not come out of Ihram. He stays in Ihram. So, which means what? That he does not cut his hair. Alright, so he doesn't cut his hair. So what does he do? He stays in a state of Ihram up until the 8th of Dhul Hijjah, and he remains in Ihram beyond that. And then the only time he comes out of Ihram is on the day of Eid, because on the day of Eid, which is the 10th of Dhul Hijjah, that is when he stones, he cuts his hair, and he makes the Tawaf. But here, there is a difference because he only makes one Sa'i. He only makes one Sa'i, and we'll mention that in a moment. So he only makes one Sa'i. So, either it is permitted for him to delay his Sa'i, so he doesn't perform it in the first Umrah. So what does he do when he arrives in Mecca? He's already in Ihram, so he just makes the Tawaf and not the Sa'i. Or he enters into Mecca, he makes the Tawaf and the Sa'i. So the reason why he has these two alternatives is because he's only going to make Sa'i once. So either he can make it there or he can make it later. So it is allowed for him to delay that Sa'i from the initial Umrah up until the Tawaf of Hajj, which is of course normally done on the 10th of Dhul Hijjah. So if he makes the Sa'i, meaning the walk between Safa and Marwa 7 times, if he makes it when he first arrives in Mecca, then he does not have to make it on the 10th of Dhul Hijjah on the day of Eid. If, however, he doesn't make it when he first arrives in Mecca with the Umrah, then he must make it on the 10th of Dhul Hijjah. Ideally on the 10th of Dhul Hijjah, if he is not delayed. Especially, he mentioned, Shaykh Ibn Uthaymeen, that it is allowed for him to delay his Sa'i if he arrives into Mecca very late and he fears that he will miss Hajj because of the fact that he's busy making Sa'i. So for example, this person, he arrives in Mecca very late. So now he fears that if I've got time to make Tawaf, but however, if I start embarking upon the Sa'i, I'm going to miss Hajj. So he makes Tawaf and goes straight to perform his Hajj. Then, on the 10th of Dhul Hijjah, when he's returning back to Mecca, because you have to make another Tawaf, which is known as Tawaf al-Ifada, or the Tawaf of Hajj, because he has to make another Tawaf, because one Tawaf is for the Umrah, the second Tawaf is for his Hajj. So when he makes a Tawaf for Hajj, he can perform his Sa'i there instead. However, if he already performed the Sa'i at the time of his Umrah, then he does not have to perform the Sa'i at the time of Hajj. So he has a choice between the two. This is for the one who performs which Hajj? Hajj Qiran, which we don't do anyway. By and large, we don't do that. We do the Hajj Tamattu'. When we travel from our lands, we perform the Hajj Tamattu'. But it is good to know that because it is possible that you may wish to do that, if you choose to do so. The third type of Hajj is called Hajj al-Ifrad. And that is when a person enters into Ihram for Hajj only. That's why it's called Ifrad. He enters into Ihram for Hajj only. So when he arrives in Mecca, he makes the Tawaf al-Qudum, meaning that he makes the Tawaf, and he makes the Sa'i for Hajj. Then he continues in his Ihram up until he comes out of Ihram on the day of Eid. There is a fine difference, and there is a difference between the Hajj al-Qiran and the Hajj al-Ifrad, and we'll mention the difference in a second, inshallah. It is also allowed for this person, the one who's making Hajj Ifrad, to delay his sa'i, same as the Qarin, the one who performs Hajj al-Qiran, that he may delay his sa'i up until after the Tawaf of Hajj also. So like the one who is making Hajj Qiran, he can either make his sa'i along with his Umrah, or he can make his sa'i when he makes the Tawaf for Hajj. Likewise for the Ifrad, he's only making Hajj. He only enters into Ihram for Hajj. But he still has to make the Tawaf al-Qudum. He has to make the Tawaf, the initial Tawaf, when he enters into Mecca. Now he can either perform the sa'i now, or he can perform the sa'i on the day of Eid, when he comes on the 10th of Dhul Hijjah. So he has a choice just like the Qarin. So now we make clear the distinction between the acts of the one who performs the performs the Hajj of Ifrad and the Hajj of Qiran. That with regard to this affair, that you find that they are very similar, except for the case of the Qarin, of the one who's making Hajj al-Qiran. That the Qarin, that he must make sacrifice to attain both of the rights of Hajj and Umrah. Unlike the Mufrad, unlike the one who makes Hajj Ifrad. So the one who is making Hajj al-Qiran, then he must offer the sacrifice to attain both of the rights. And the best type of Hajj is which type? Anyone know? First one, Tamattu'. It is the best type of Hajj, because the Prophet ﷺ commanded with it, he commanded his companions with it, and he encouraged them upon it. Rather, he commanded them to change their intention of Hajj to Umrah for the purpose of Tamattu'. So initially when they came, the Prophet ﷺ came with his companions, that they came with the Ihram of Hajj only. But then the Prophet ﷺ commanded them to change it to Tamattu', showing its afdaliyah, showing its virtue over the other types of Hajj. It is reported from Ibn Abbas radiyallahu anhuma that when he was asked about the Hajj al-Tamattu', he said that the people that the Muhajirun and the Ansar and the wives of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, all of us, we entered, or that we all made Hajj, the final Hajj, alongside Allah's Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And all of us, we entered into Ihram. And when we came to Mecca, when we entered into Mecca, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, make your Ihram of Hajj into Umrah. Make your Ihram of Hajj and make it into an Umrah. Except for the one who has brought his sacrificial animal with him. Except for the one who has brought his sacrificial animal with him. So he said, Ibn Abbas, he said, so we made tawaf of the house. And we went between Safa and Marwa. And we came to our women, meaning that we had relations with our wives. And we put on our normal clothing. The hadith reported by Bukhari. And likewise the hadith from Jabir radiyallahu anhu, who said, he said that we went out alongside Allah's Messenger sallallahu alayhi wasallam, and we entered into Ihram for Hajj. And with us were the women and children. And when we entered into Mecca, we made tawaf of the house and of Safa and Marwa. We made sa'i between Safa and Marwa. Then Allah's Messenger sallallahu alayhi wasallam, he said, whomsoever has not brought with him his sacrificial animal, then let him come out of ihram. So we said to the Prophet ﷺ, which part of ihram shall we come out of? So the Prophet ﷺ said, all of it. So then Jabir said, so we went to our wives and we had relations with them. And we put on our normal clothes. And we applied perfume, fragrance. And then when it came to the day of Tarwiyah, which is the 8th of Dhul Hijjah, we entered into ihram again for Hajj. Reported by Muslim. So this shows that when they came to perform Hajj with Allah's Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that he told them after they had performed the tawaf and the sa'i, he told them to come out of the ihram, so long as you have not brought your sacrificial animal. And of course these days, no one takes their goat and sheep with them to the haram. So in these days, what's better in that case? For everyone, tamattu. For everyone this is better, meaning that everyone comes out of ihram and they consider their Hajj to be a Hajj which contains the Umrah first. And likewise, it is clearly reported the excellence of Hajj al-Tamattu' over all of the other types, and all of the other types of Hajj is reported from the Prophet ﷺ himself. When the Prophet ﷺ said, Na'am, he said that if I knew now that which I knew before, I would not have brought the sacrificial animal. If I knew now, what I knew, if I knew now in the affair that which I did not know before, I would not have brought the sacrificial animal. Meaning, as Ibn Uthaymeen mentions, that nothing prevented him from coming out of ihram, because he also performed the tawaf and he also made the sa'i, but he did not come out of ihram himself. Why? Because he had brought the sacrificial animal with him. So that was the only thing that prevented him. And also because, as Ibn Uthaymeen mentions, that the Hajj al-Tamattu', meaning the Hajj, that you perform the Umrah, then you come out of ihram, then you enter back into ihram on the 8th of Dhul Hijjah and Yawm al-Tarwiyah, that it is the easiest type of Hajj, due to the fact that you come out of ihram between the Hajj and the Umrah. That you perform the Umrah, then you come out of the ihram. And then you can, of course, wear your normal clothes, you can cut your hair, you can cut your nails, you can apply perfume, you can go to your wives. So it is the easier type of Hajj. And it is the better type of Hajj, because the Prophet ﷺ would have done it had he not brought the sacrificial animal. So the only thing that prevented him from performing that time of Hajj was the fact that he brought his sacrificial animal with him. Naam. So, and this is in accordance, as Shaykh Ibn Uthaymeen mentioned, rahimahullah, in accordance with the statement of Allah, يُرِيدُ اللَّهُ بِكُمُ الْيُسْرَ وَلَا يُرِيدُ بِكُمُ الْعُسْرَ. That Allah wishes for you ease, and Allah does not wish for you hardship. And likewise, the Prophet ﷺ saying, he said that I have been sent, بُعِثْتُ بِالْحَنِيفِيَّةِ السَّمْحَةِ, that I have been sent with the easygoing religion, with the religion that has ease within it, reported by Imam Ahmad from Aisha radiallahu anha. It is possible for a pilgrim to enter into ihram for umrah as a mutamatti' and then to perform Hajj. Right? So that is possible for a person to do, because those people that they enter into ihram, what a person does, a pilgrim does, that when he reaches the miqat, he enters into ihram for umrah. Then he comes out of ihram after performing the umrah, cuts his hair and so on, and then he re-enters into ihram. However, if he is not able, and that is possible, if he is not able to complete his umrah before he is due to stand at Arafah. So in this condition, he enters Hajj into Umrah before beginning the Tawaf of Umrah. And thus he becomes Qarin. And we'll explain that with 2 examples. And of course, this is for the person who comes to Mecca very late. So he comes to Mecca when? What day is the day of Arafah? 9th, right? So he didn't enter into Ihram on the 8th, which is the Sunnah. But he can still catch Hajj so long as he stands at Arafah. So he reaches Mecca very late. By the time he reaches Mecca, that now he's in danger. That he won't be able to complete his Umrah before he stands at Arafah. Because if you miss Arafah, you missed Hajj. Because Arafah is a pillar of Hajj. If you miss Arafah, you missed Hajj. So in this condition, he enters the Hajj into Umrah before beginning the Tawaf of Umrah and thus becomes a Qarin. So he came with the intention of what? Mutamatti'. But he's reached Mecca, he realizes, actually, I'm not going to be able. Before he even starts making the Tawaf, he says, if I now make the Tawaf, then I make the Sa'i, then I come out of Ihram, then I've got to come back into Ihram, and then I've got to get to Arafah, I'm going to miss Arafah. So what does he do? That before he makes the Tawaf of Umrah, he now enters, before beginning, he enters the Hajj. He enters the Hajj into his Umrah, and thus, with that intention, he becomes, which type of Hajj? Which Hajj has Umrah and Hajj combined without coming out of Ihram? Qarin, right? So his Hajj, right? He becomes Qarin. So he becomes Qarin by way of that. Now this situation, he gives 2 examples. He said the first example is a woman who enters into Ihram for Umrah because she wants to perform the Hajj at-Tamattu'. However, she enters, but she's in a state of menstruation. And she's allowed for a menstruating woman, by the way, to enter into Ihram. But she's not allowed to do what? The Tawaf or the Sa'i. Right? So she enters into Ihram and she has the intention of Tamattu'. So she's going to make Umrah and then come out of Ihram. Right? But she can't make the Tawaf up until she's pure. But she can enter into Ihram. She's hoping that before the day of Hajj, meaning before the 8th, that I'm going to become pure. So then I can go and make the Umrah, come out of Ihram, cut my hair, come out of Ihram, come back into Ihram, come out of Ihram, come back into Ihram again, and then go to Mina. And at the very latest, I can make it to Arafah. Meaning even if I miss Mina, I can make Arafah. Because Arafah you can't miss. If you miss Arafah, Hajj gone. So this is in her mind. So she enters into a state of menstruation or nifas, postnatal bleeding. You say, a woman going to make Hajj and she's postnatally bleeding? That's how they were, those women. They weren't looking for this hospital and that hospital. They used to have their babies upon the journey. So she has the baby, she enters into nifas. Now, how likely is it that she's going to make Umrah? Very unlikely, right? I mean, it's possible if it was Shawwal, for example. So she enters into Ihram in the month of Shawwal. Because there are 3 months of Hajj, right? What are they? Shawwal, Dhul Qa'dah and Dhul Hijjah. So she, and a person say, why would she enter into Ihram when she knows that she's going to have a baby imminently? How? Because she enters into Ihram in Shawwal. She has the baby in Shawwal. It's possible, because it's still another month and a half, 2 months, nearly 2 months away. It's possible for her to become pure from her postnatal bleeding. It's possible, right? However, let's stick to the example of the menstruating woman, because that is more common. That she enters into Ihram and she is menstruating. So this is where Shaykh ibn Uthaymeen picks up from. He mentions, and she does not become pure before the standing of Arafah on the 9th. Because the standing of Arafah is on the 9th. Right? So, what does she do? So she enters into the ihram for Hajj. And she becomes qarina. But there's a problem here. And this is where there's some ikhtilaf in this issue. So now, imagine this woman. She goes past the miqat. She's menstruating. Can she enter into ihram? Yes, no question. Aisha entered into ihram. So she enters into ihram, no problem with that. So now, let's say it's the 6th of Dhul Hijjah. When do they go to Mina? What day? 8th. That's the first day of Hajj. Yawm Tarwiyah. So she enters into ihram, let's say on the airplane or wherever she is. She enters into ihram, but she's menstruating. She reaches Mecca, she's still menstruating. Everyone else is from her party, except for her. She can't perform the umrah because she can't make tawaf. So now she waits. So now it's the 6th. 7th, she's still bleeding, miskina. 8th, she's still bleeding. Right? 9th, she's still bleeding. Now what does she do? If she misses the 9th, Hajj gone. What does she do? She changes now herself from being mutamatti' to what? Mutamatti'ah. She is now what? Which type of Hajj? She changes it to Qiran. However, Qiran involves what? Hajj and Umrah. Right? It involves Hajj and Umrah. This is why Shaykh Al-Albani said, no. She doesn't enter into being a qarina. What does she become instead? Ifrad, Hajjul Ifrad. Her Hajj is Hajjul Ifrad. That's what Shaykh Al-Albani said. Why? Because this exact same thing happened to Aisha. Aisha radiallahu anha started crying. And the Prophet ﷺ said that your menstruation is not in your hands. It's not in your hands. So do everything that the pilgrim does. But do not make tawaf of the house. Meaning, as Ibn Uthaymeen mentions, do not make tawaf and don't make the sa'i. Alright? So she did everything, but she stayed in ihram. Now the days are passing by. She's not coming out of her period. So now, Arafah comes. What does she do? She enters into the intention for Hajj. Which type of Hajj? Hajj on its own. Ifrad. How do we know it was Hajj Ifrad and not Hajj Qarin? Shaykh Ibn Uthaymeen mentions that she became Qarina. Shaykh Al-Albani said, no, she wasn't Qarina. She was a Mufrida. That she was making the Hajj of Ifrad. Why? Because after all of the Hajj, she performed all the rites of Hajj, then she became pure. Now she can make the Tawaf of Hajj. Right? Because now she has to stone. Right? She has to clip her hair. The woman only clips a, what do you call that point there? Fingertip length of hair. Right? Just on the end of her hair. Right? So that she did all of that. Now she makes the tawaf. Which tawaf does she make? The tawaf al-ifad, the tawaf of Hajj. And the sa'i. What hasn't she done that everybody else has done? Umrah. So she started crying again. She said, Ya Rasulullah. The Prophet said, why are you crying? You made your Hajj. She said, Ya Rasulullah, everybody else made Umrah, I didn't make Umrah. Right? So what did he do? He said to her brother, Abdurrahman ibn Abi Bakr, take her to the hill, right? Take her to Tan'im and let her put on the ihram and she can come back and perform the Umrah. Shaykh Al-Albani said, that's the proof that the Hajj that she did was Hajj Ifrad because she was not able to make the Umrah before the Hajj and then come out of ihram. So that should be clear. So the woman, she does everything that the Hajj does, that the person making the person making Hajj does, except that she does not make tawaf of the house and she does not make the sa'i between Safa and Marwa up until she is pure from her menstruation and she makes the ghusl. The second example that he brings that could happen, and this first example can happen right now, can happen to any woman. And my advice to the sisters, for those sisters who are listening online and maybe here in the masjid as well, do not take tablets to prevent your menstrual cycle. 9 times out of 10, they don't work. Why don't they work? Because the women living in the West, their body clock is upon a certain scheme and timeline. Your body clock and the way that your cycle comes is based upon the land that you live in, the temperature, the humidity, the heat, the food you eat, and so on. Right? So if you were to maybe take a tablet in this country, it might stop your menstrual cycle. But in all of the experiences, nearly 2 decades of experience, every single year we have that same issue. A sister, she takes a pill to stop the menstrual cycle. When she reaches Mecca, the bleeding becomes erratic because the tablet didn't work properly. Why? Because she's gone through a long journey. Sometimes they don't sleep for, 18 hours because of the journey from her home all the way through Jeddah, then to Mecca. Then the heat, then the eating habits, then the environment. All of that affects her hormones, and now the tablet doesn't know what to do. Not that the tablet has a mind. Those chemicals, they do not work properly. So the best thing to do is allow your menstrual cycle to take its course. And eventually you'll come out of your cycle. At the very least, you would have done the Hajj of Aisha, radiyallahu anha. If you cannot make the Umrah and then come out of Ihram and then go to Hajj on the 8th of Yawm al-Tarwiyah, then no harm. What you can do is stay in your Ihram, perform the Hajj, your Hajj is complete. Then, when you become pure, you can make tawaf of the house, meaning the tawaf of Hajj. You can make sa'i, the sa'i for Hajj. Then, when you become pure, then you come out of your Ihram, or you've come out of your Ihram already because of the stoning and the cutting of the hair and the tawaf anyway. And then you've got an Umrah to make. If you wish to make it, it's not obligatory upon you that Umrah because your Hajj is complete with Ifrad, right? Or Qarin, if you want to take the position of Ibn Uthaymeen. But your Hajj is complete anyway. But if you wish to make an Umrah now, you can take a chaperone, a mahram, and you know all the categories of mahram, right? You can take a mahram with you and go to Tan'im, which they now call what? You know what they call it, the place? Masjid Aisha. They've given it the name. Take me to Masjid Aisha. There's a masjid there now. And the women, they go, women who are upon their men, and you find also men there and so on, because they also take the opinion that the men can make tawaf, even though Shaykh al-Albani said no. How many Sahaba went to Tan'im to make Umrah again? No one. Shaykh al-Albani said no one went. Even Abdurrahman ibn Abi Bakr took his sister. Did he take the ihram and say, well, she's going to make Umrah, I must make Umrah with her? Did he do it? No. So Shaykh al-Albani said, don't go to Tan'im, or what we call today Masjid Aisha, to the hill. It's called the hill because it is the nearest boundary, or it is a boundary outside of the Haram area. And he did not take on the ihram. Anyway, the second example is a person who takes on the ihram for Umrah to become mutamatti'an, to become mutamatti'. So he wants to perform the Umrah, come out of ihram, and then go into Hajj, the ihram for Hajj. So this is what he does. However, it is not possible because of whatever, maybe there's a roadblock in Mecca. The roads are blocked into Mecca, and the roads continue to be blocked up until the 9th of Dhul Hijjah. What's the 9th of Dhul Hijjah? The day of Arafah. So now, what does he do? If I go to perform Umrah and Sa'i, I'm going to miss Arafah. If I miss Arafah, you've missed Hajj. Okay, you got your Umrah, but that's not what you came. You came for Hajj. So now, the roads are blocked up until the standing at Arafah. So this one now enters into the state of Hajj upon his Umrah, and he becomes, as Shaykh Ibn Uthaymeen mentions, he also becomes Qarin. Right, so therefore, he enters into another state because he is not able to complete his Umrah, so he's excused from the Umrah, but he performs the Hajj anyway. In the position of Al-Albani, what is he in reality? Hajj what? Ifrad. Because he didn't perform the Umrah. Right? Allahu A'lam anyway. But that's the point. What time's the adhan? Anyone? Where's the muezzin? Approximately. What does he say on the timetable? 4 minutes. Khalas. So in that case, I'm not going to begin the next chapter. But all of that should be enlightening, especially for the women folk. Advice, stay away from the tablets. They are chemicals. Plus, as Ibn Uthaymeen mentions, he says that it is allowed for the woman to take the tablet, Shaykh Ibn Uthaymeen mentions, on the condition that it does not harm you. And secondly, of course, not that Ibn Uthaymeen doesn't mention the second condition, but I advise you with the second point, and that is that from our experience, for women who are travelling to Hajj, native women, who are women of Mecca, possibly, Jeddah, Mecca. Why? Because it's their own country. But women who travel huge distances, they come all the way from America. After taking a tablet, wallahi, we've heard it happen. She bleeds, and then the bleeding becomes erratic. She bleeds for 1 day, then the bleeding stops for 2 days. Then she starts bleeding. Now, we have to start phoning up the ulama and ask for fatwa. Why? Because the sister took the tablet. Don't take the tablet. Barakallahu feekum. Don't take those pills that will stop your bleeding. And if this affair happens to you, that you're not allowed, that you're prevented from making the tawaf for the umrah because you're mutamatti'ah, because you're making the hajj tamattu. What's hajj tamattu? Umrah, then come out of ihram, then you re-enter into ihram on the 8th. That's the easiest hajj, by the way. It's the easiest hajj. Barakallahu feekum. So, that woman who enters into that state, she misses the umrah, don't come out of ihram. That's happened once or twice also. Well, more than once or twice. Several times. That woman, she says, well, okay, I wasn't able to make umrah because I was bleeding. So what does she do? She just comes out of ihram. Say, what do you come out of ihram for? Well, I don't know. I just thought I'm not going to make tawaf. Tomorrow's Yawm Tarwiyah, the 8th. We're going to go to Mina. So I just, cut my hair and thought I'd, clip my nails and so on. And I came out of ihram. Don't come out of ihram. If you are bleeding, don't come out of ihram. Stay in ihram and then ask. Ask us. And of course, many of us are there from the brothers, from the students of knowledge, like Abu Hakim, Hafidhullah, Abu Idris will be there, Abu Mu'adh will be there, other brothers will be there if you are travelling from the UK. Just ask, inshallah, and if it's a complex question, then inshallah we'll put it to one of the scholars. But inshallah, generally speaking, it's not as difficult as you would imagine. So upon that note, inshallah, we'll finish for today. And as you can see, the discussion on Hajj is a very fascinating one, and it is an important one. And we'll proceed, inshallah, again on Tuesday evening. The next dars in the Manasikul Hajj wal Umrah is on Tuesday. Then on Thursday, then on Friday, then on Saturday, then on Sunday. And we'll see how far we get. Hopefully we'll get most of it finished by that time. وجزاكم الله خيرا والحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم.